Hey, how's it going? Dr. Medic here. This month we have everyone's favorite drunk Scott who has an affinity for explosives, Demoman. If you don't know at this point or you're new, this series is where I take my underappreciated weapons video from last July and cut it up into segments for your enjoyment. It is one weapon for each slot. Though, to make it a little bit more interesting, especially for those who have seen the original video, this one will have one brand new segment, if not two, at the end created specifically for this video. That weapon can be from any slot that I desire. Now that you're caught up, let's go. For the first primary slot, the grenade launcher, I decided to go with is the lock and load. It was between this and the loose cannon, but I feel like people love the loose cannon a little bit more, whereas I feel like the lock and load doesn't get the same treatment, because double donks go unfathomably hard. This weapon comes with a nice 25% projectile speed bonus, as well as a 20% damage bonus against enemy buildings. For the downside of one less grenade in the chamber, a 25% explosion radius penalty, making it not so great for crowd control, and to really seal the deal, grenades shatter upon hitting a surface that isn't a player or a building, basically meaning no rollers. The lock and load may not be as good as it once was, but it's still really good. People seem to forget that this thing is a real building deleter and has some stupid range. Demoman is already a great counter to Engineer. I mean, he's the main counter to Engineer as long as they're not using the short circuit. But the lock and load can two-shot any building from any range and from a pretty far range too. And then of course can one-shot a mini, but so can every other grenade launcher except the loose cannon unless you time it right. While it no longer has the damage bonus against players like it should, it still is a great grenade launcher due to the extra projectile speed. Losing rollers does suck, but directs are what you're going for the majority of the time, and the lock and load makes it a lot easier to do. On top of that, the grenade has no tumble. This is a hidden stat. This wasn't always the case, but around, I want to say 2014. If you don't know what I'm talking about, okay. With any grenade launcher, if you shoot a grenade, the grenade will have a random offset and start rolling in the air. You'll start tumbling, either forwards or backwards. It's random. And because of how TF2's air resistance and drag works, it kind of can offset it a little bit, so you can, it might go slightly to the left, slightly to the right, not as far, a little further. It has some weird variance. The lock and load doesn't have any tumble. And because, like I said, how TF2's air resistance and drag works, this allows the grenade to go significantly further. And it makes it easier for your shots to hit because there's no variance. It's kind of the same with the Iron Bomber, but technically Iron Bomber does have tumble, it just doesn't have as much because of the shape of the grenade. But we're not talking about the Iron Bomber, we're talking about the lock and load. The lock and load's only real drawback is the fact that it has a 25% clip size penalty. Having one less grenade does suck, but it's not the end of the world. Overall, it's not a bad weapon, it's actually really good. It can just absolutely annoy the hell out of enemy engineers. It makes it easier to hit those really long-range shots and pester snipers. There's another weapon that actually pesters snipers, and we'll get to that next. And I highly recommend that you give this thing a second chance if you haven't in a while. So now that we talked about the lock and load, let's move on to my next favorite weapon, the next primary. Okay, so now we're going to move on to Demoman secondaries. Oddly enough, this next weapon is the reason I wanted to make the video in the first place. It's a bit of a weird choice, but I have been using it recently and have found it to actually be pretty good. People often use this weapon or try this weapon out, but they don't know how to capitalize on it, and they use it completely incorrectly. Then they think, oh, this weapon sucks, and they put it away. But it's actually pretty good. This Demoman's second primary, the Quickie Bomb Launcher. It was this or the Scottish Resistance, but I recently watched Teal Opal's video where the Scottish Resistance was included, so I thought I'd stick to the Quickie Bomb Launcher. Before I break everything down like I so eagerly want to, here are the stats. This weapon has the ability to destroy enemy sticky bombs that are caught in the explosion radius. It comes with a 0.2 second reduced arm time, allowing for spam, but it does have another purpose. And then the two most underrated stats of this weapon, a 70% decreased charge-up time and a 35% damage bonus based on charge. For the downside of a half mag holding 4 rather than 8, and a flat 15% damage penalty to start. This weapon is so underrated, and I think it's because, one, the sticky bomb launcher is just so brainless, but two, people use it wrong. The name is Quickie Bomb Launcher, which would have the majority of people thinking it's a spam tool. so you can quickly detonate bombs on the ground. This was exacerbated by the original downside of stickies fizzling out after 2 seconds. I believe it was 4 seconds before they eventually got rid of it. It was 2 seconds when it came out, then it was changed to 4, and now they don't fizzle at all. So you couldn't really put down traps. However, while that is a use case, and you can definitely use the weapon like this weapon has an actual better purpose. People who use the Quickie Bomb Launcher frequently already know what I'm going to talk about. Sniping. Yes, sniping. All thanks to that 70% decreased charge up time and the 35% damage bonus. It seems that some people are unaware that the Sticky Bomb Launcher can actually charge up. I'm always surprised by the amount of people who don't know that. Yes, you can. By holding down M1, you can charge up your Sticky Bomb Launcher in order to launch the bomb a little bit further. And you can actually get some pretty good range too. Well, yes, the further your bomb goes, the less damage it's going to do because you're further away from it. But it still does pretty good damage. This weapon's charge is very, very quick, which allows you to be a little more effective at pestering enemies from a distance, or engineer buildings. Sometimes there's an engineer building way on the other side of the map, and your lock and load won't reach, or maybe you're not using the lock and load, so this weapon can be very good for charging up a couple stickies to blow up their buildings. It also has a nice extra damage bonus, because that, sure, it's a 15% flat damage bonus to start, but that 35% damage bonus as you charge it up will eventually make up for that damage penalty. It's pretty damn good. I have straight up out-sniped snipers with this. With the Quickie, I have found it useful that if there's a sniper that's a good chunk of distance away and has a lot of his team in front of him, which happens very often, you can find a good vantage point and charge up a sticky or two to pester him. And that extra charge decrease time, the decreased time it takes to actually blow up your stickies, can be good for enemies who are a little bit closer than you anticipated. Though it also works in the opposite way. So yes, it can only deal 30 to 40 damage, maybe 50 from a distance, so it's not the best at actually killing, it's just good at pestering, but it actually can also work in the reverse, as I stated. Let's say you have a scout that's chasing you down, which happens a lot as a Demoman. Scout sees a Demoman, oh, easy kill, because Demomans have hard times hitting scouts. I don't know, I think it has something to do with the fact that he's all projectile based, just maybe. But if you can get around a corner or kind of break line of sight, you can quickly charge up a sticky and throw it on the ground. And then you can just wait for the scout to come after you, which he most definitely will, because scouts have egos the size of Russia. But you'll eventually come through, and you can actually pretty consistently one-tap light classes with just a single bomb. There's been many times where I've done over 130 damage. Because remember, that 35% damage bonus is actually capable of putting it over the damage threshold for killing one-tapping light classes. The amount of times I have actually one-shot overextending scouts is insane. And as we know, scouts can be a veteran difficulty level challenge if they're good with their movement, but this can definitely deal with them. So it's great at sniping, it's great at dealing with enemies who are close to you, it could be a spam tool, it's really, really good. The only thing that holds it back is the fact that it only holds 4 stickies in a single mag. 4. It used to be 6, and it wasn't a big deal because, 2 less stickies, but now you have 4 less stickies compared to stock. So you have to make sure that you are aware of your ammo count. Make sure that doesn't get out of your sight. But anyway, the Quickie Bomb Launcher is super good, very versatile, and I definitely recommend you use it if you don't. Or at least give it a try. That's it for demo secondaries, or second primary as some may say. Let's move on to his melees. When originally pitching for this video, I was going to have this segment be about the Persian Persuader. That one Demo Knight weapon. The Persian Persuader is overshadowed by the half-side Engie and Eyeliner most of the time, but I was thinking about it, and I do see the Persian Persuader a lot more than I see this other sword. And this other sword is pretty good, but it's often overshadowed because people use it wrong. I obviously also could talk about the Pain Train here, but I talked about the Pain Train in the Soldier segment, so we're not going to talk about it. We're going to talk about the Claymore. The Claymore? However you want to say it. I call it the Claymore. The Claymore gives you an extra 0.5 second of charge for the downside of no random critical hits, just like every single sword, as well as a 15% damage vulnerability on wear. It also has the extra melee range and slower deploy of all other swords. So cool. This weapon is not hated, but it is underappreciated, mainly because people are trying to use this as a demo night weapon. It is not. So there's Demoman, Demo Knight. What else is there? Well, of course, there's the mixed breed Hybrid Knight. You see, the 15% damage vulnerability on wearer isn't entirely accurate, as it has the white text right here at the top, which states that the effects only apply while the weapon's active. This means that while you only get an increased charge while the sword is actually out and deployed, you don't get the damage vulnerability while it's holstered. So as long as you don't have it out, you're not going to take any additional damage, which is great. This is perfect for Hybrid Knight because you can have your grenade launcher out, for example, and then when you need to charge away or charge into somebody who's really far away, you have your Claymore. It's perfect. The extra charge duration is amazing, allowing you to have more efficient getaways, have a higher chance of catching fleeing enemies, and then charging from further distances, being less detectable for screeching at the top of your lungs and charging forward with a blue or red glowing sword that is exceptionally long. The Claymore is fantastic, and it's a fantastic Demoman sword. They really all are, but I definitely recommend you give the Clay a try if you haven't in a while. But make sure that you try it with a Hybrid Knight loadout instead, so you can utilize the primary upside of the additional charge duration while also not having to suffer an effective health of 170 with booties. I love this sword. Here we are at the brand new segment. Demoman's weapons for the most part are pretty properly rated, and the three I already spoke about are the strongest examples. However, I stated for the secondary segment, I was picking between two weapons. The one I went with was obviously the Quickie Bomb Launcher, as I still do truly believe to this day that not enough people use the Quickie Bomb Launcher to its fullest potential, and the few people who do use it just don't use it correctly. The other option was the Scottish Resistance. Though at the time, if you remember, I said that Teal Opal, another prominent content creator, much bigger than me, made a video called TF2 Slept On Weapons or something along those lines, and the Scottish Resistance was part of that video. Funnily enough, when I created that segment, the video was only 4 days old, but when I released the video officially, it was like 3 months old. So in reality, it didn't matter because by the time anyone saw my video, that video would have been considered old news, in quotes, at that point. Though, now that I'm recording this on September 22nd, and the video is probably going to release on, well, February 20th, hopefully it should release at that time, so even more time has passed. I think it's cool if I talk about the Scottish Resistance in my own extra segment. So that's what we're doing, the Scottish Resistance. The Scottish Resistance has a lot of upsides, and I mean a lot of upsides, including a 25% faster firing speed, 50% more ammo in reserve, going from 24 to 36, 6 extra bombs that can be placed at once for a total of 14 rather than the standard 8, the ability to detonate certain bombs by placing a crosshair over them, and the ability to destroy sticky bombs just like the Quickie Bomb Launcher. I guess you can also detonate sticky bombs while you stand on top of them, that's listed, but that's less of an upside and more of a quality of life thing, so you could still kind of sticky jump with this thing. It would be a little bit awkward if you had to look down in order to sticky jump. This just makes it a little bit easier and more in line with the other sticky bomb launchers. And all these stats for the downside of a 0.8 second arm time penalty, meaning that it takes 1.5 seconds to arm rather than 0.7 seconds to arm, just like the stock sticky bomb launcher. This weapon is underutilized because it's a heavy defense-orientated tool and isn't as versatile as the stock sticky bomb launcher is. Though it's still an amazing weapon. It's a #1 trap setter for sure. I mean, obviously it was designed that way on purpose, sacrificing offensive versatility for being stronger at defense, even if it's not bad at doing both. The bombs still arm rather quickly, and while it can be harder to time and might require a bit more of panic in one mashing, you can still use this weapon offensively quite well. That 0.8 second arm time penalty is a minimal downside, but I won't say it never comes into play. It's definitely a legit downside. Not a sticky tank weapon for sure. The 25% faster firing speed is great for carpet bombing areas such as the point or payload, sorry not sorry, or quickly setting up traps before a group of enemies come through. Unfortunately, it doesn't have a faster reload, but still being able to get those bombs out quicker and ready to go can be a lifesaver at times. Even if it takes about a second longer to detonate, it's still pretty good. You have the ability to detonate certain bombs at will, and being able to place 6 extra bombs is pretty awesome. This allows you to set multiple traps that can both be effective. I mean, there's been 1,000,001 times where I'm using the stock sticky bomb launcher, or even the quickie bomb launcher, since that thing can lay traps now, where I lay maybe 2 traps on, I don't know, a door or some sort of walkthrough, and somebody walks through the first trap, I blow them up, and then someone waltzes through trap 2, but the bomb's already detonated, so there's nothing I can do. The ability to detonate certain traps is an amazing feature, and I have used it a bunch of times. It does help. I don't know if I got any footage of that, but it's pretty good. It can still be a pain to use at range, since your detonation circle covers a good chunk of the screen and can blow up bombs you didn't mean to. That has happened 1,000,000 times to me, and I'm sure anybody who uses the Scottish Resistance regularly or semi-regularly has had this happen to them. The extra ammo in reserve is the least interesting upside, but it also does allow you to place more traps without having to go to an ammo source, so I'd rather have it than not. Anyway, the Scottish Resistance is an awesome weapon, and I definitely recommend it on tight maps, on defense, or maps with several entrances into areas that you can protect multiple doors. Basically exactly what this weapon was intended for. You can use it on offense as well, I guess, but this weapon most certainly shines if you use it on defense, 5 CP, King of the Hill, CTF, whatever. You get the idea. If you haven't used this weapon in a while, give it a shot. Honestly, you know what, I'm going to add this at the end, this is completely unrelated, but pretty much all the other sticky bomb launchers are underrated as hell. Quickie bomb launcher, the Scottish Resistance, even the sticky jumper, which I'm not doing an entire segment about, but I thought I'd talk a little bit at the end. They're all great. The quickie bomb launcher is great for sniping enemies. The Scottish Resistance is great for laying traps down and just kind of guarding an area. And the sticky jumper is a great mobility tool. So thought I'd add that in at the end. But still, Scottish Resistance, very good. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. I know I rambled a little bit at the end, but I will see you later in March. Or if you watch a couple of clips, I'll see you in a few days.